So like with the universe, pulsing from everything coming together, clustering together, getting very hot, and then essentially coming apart, and then back together, apart. It's pulsing, a bit like day and night, day and night, day and night. And then that begins to affect behavior, our behavior. Well, you might associate the dark times, the colder times, things shutting down, being like nature, depressing. This might influence when you're going to breed, especially if you come from hunter-gatherers and go further back. This is going to give you a birthing line when it's better to have children to guarantee food in the expansion moving over into the summer ratio. Owls are fascinating. They stepped out of this patterning. Now, we're in this ebb and flow back and forth from one to the other. Season per season. Now, we're also like it with sleep cycle. And this would perhaps get longer per one season and shorter per another, which means that we have an optimal operating ratio. We're more awake and alert and feel more in the summer than you do in the winter. You're very groggy, you want to rest it off, perhaps don't feel like doing all of the things that you do here, which then creates a behavior in your body to start acting in rhythm to these cycles. Best to shut down when times are a bit more scarce, which then, is that because of nature shutting down? So is that nature's behavior acting, affecting a behavior which then affects the vessel of when it wakes up and goes to sleep? Now, we did turn some of this off because there's a loss of light as well. So there's also light and darkness. Nowadays, with the invention of what, candles, let's say, maybe candles, perhaps, oil lamps and lights, you're now more in control of a frequency, and you've taken yourself out of the light and dark cycling. Not 100%, but you can prolong the light during the darkness. That's an interesting thing. Which there again helps you to be a bit more alert, a bit more awake when usually you would be asleep. But there again, if this behavior remains unchanged of nature, which it would make you look at, can we do something about nature's behavior? Can we make it awake and step out of this ebb and flow pattern? And can we wake this up? Why? Because it would be like multiple summers. In an abundance. While one's in rest, perhaps it needs it. Who knows? Perhaps it goes a real long cycle and it perhaps demands a winter. But that's waking them up at the right time, and they've got to then be even bigger habitats, because if they need to sleep for the rest of the year, then have another one activate as this one is then going into rest mode. And you keep building until you have a flow ratio, which steps out of a pattern of Earth's pattern, its seasonal pattern. And then is Earth affecting nature's seasonal pattern, which then affects our sleep cycles, which then in turn is affecting our behavior. And how much of our body has been optimized around this here? And what happens if you were to eliminate this here? Does it grow this? So with the invention of the light and fire, fire made light and heat. Essentially, for hunter-gatherers, that was like making a mini summer. During the coldest times. Winter. That altered their behavior a little bit. Now, perhaps, and maybe they did, maybe they didn't, might start paying attention to why can we stay awake but nothing else will? Must have posed for a lot of deep questions. And bit by bit, sure, with the invention of perhaps a shelter and heat. They're creating a summer environment where the air is dry. That's a very interesting pointing towards summer behavior while living in winter. And then the body has adapted to this. And look at what more got made. So things could be made in the winter as well as the summer. And you can do more. Be more. To a degree, that runs on, runs on, runs on. And we do nothing about the nature behavior. We forget about it. Now, if we were able to extend this, and this was to, we were basically to, if you think about it, divide the lands. One top layer, natural, with the seasons, and it's all in line with all of the seasons that you have on Earth. So, there we are. So let's just say that we're going to be hitting into here, okay? That's your natural ebb and flow on the Earth. Now, underground, when this one is starting to go into its autumn mode after summer, this one is going into its spring mode that's growing underground. And this one is decaying while this one is now growing in the conditions that mimic summer. By the time the top land mass reaches winter, this one is now in summer. And you would think that humanity, somewhere along the lines, may have had an existence of being able to recreate, which you could do now. This is summer and all of the creation and everything else. It's supporting gases, it's supporting water purification. And then when this one rolls around into its autumn, this one will be awakening into spring. What have you now got? You've now got, you are living as a being more and more able to do things because you've stepped out of this natural ebb and flow and you've kept it parallel to the ebb and flow. Could be in either, right? Maybe it's nice to walk through the winter area, but knowing that summer is just through another doorway. Quick walk above the land in the winter, and then into a beautiful summer awakening below. I mean, that is freaking beautiful. Now, that's the thing about this whole universe. Everything is all like this. Now, if we can do this, we can physically do this, then why can't we do the same with this or anything else? And I think this is what life's about, really, being intelligent, is about finding a way to make a perfect environment for both of these situations to reside inside, and then pick which side you want to be in at what given time. And then you begin to experience summer all of the time. And could you get better with this process? Yeah, put it into 4 stories and keep going. Then put it into 12. One being spring, one being, you get to rotate the seasons and an abundance of crop and food. And often than not, quite a good way of existing because now you get to do more. If you were to apply this to space, right? A lot of your body is, we got to understand something. Evolution, yeah, is incredible. It's an incredible force. Now, with all of the information that it's learned and the behaviors here, but now introduce this new behavior, it can now let go of all of this protection here. And it can then start to take on the universe. Which is the next level. Which is the next step. So evolution is very powerful. It's been keeping us alive, helping us to keep survival. Throughout all of the odds, it's got us through quite a bit. And as a result, it's reading the light. It's also reading the darkness. Now, perhaps that's using skins and sensors, and as we feel the environment, this particular capability in us is also reading all of this information. And yet it starts to note food coming in, not only to give you energy, but it's also supporting this operating system that seems to go on in the background. It sort of takes in the best part of the nutrients in order for it to know what to adjust for, to change with, to evolve together. Very careful cat and mouse to evolve there with your food and the nutrients that you take in. Also to protect your skin from too much heat, too much light, or likewise too much darkness. If you're around in the darkness for too long, it can be quite bad, and also in the light too. However, when you step away and create your own environment, which makes it more stable, then that would be the best for your skin then, wouldn't it? Then this would trigger something that I can relax for a bit. Something has changed. I no longer need to support this. And therefore, that's a pause in the behavior. This is how generations transform behaviorally. So if we look at that as skin is one, the intensity in the eyes is another. Again, still related on these sort of sensors that we take for granted. It's almost like they operate in two ways. So the eyes, the skin. Now, this is going to free up energy. Does it need to now protect against that? No, because something seems to be protecting from it. Is it extinction? No, because the food is coming in really well, like it's receiving everything that it needs. This information starts to process. Okay. Now, how, if environment indeed does shape our behavior based on all of this information that comes in, if we were to strip away all of the environmental factors and everything else, what are you? And it points to a very small seed, a creator. With all of these, I don't know, resources everywhere, what can you create with it? The behavior that we've got, this sleeping cycle, death, again, it can't handle this on a planet. That's for sure, it'd run into problems. Sleeping, shutting down, meaning if you were awake 24 hours a day, factor in that you do not hibernate for winter and you're still awake. Nature isn't. And if you only believe in your own species, 365 days a year of constant bustle from humans would end the planet and its resources very quickly. So you would be ×2 in the future now than what you are, and any problems that you have, metastasize these ×2 it over the course of how long it's been running for, and that's how dire the situation would be. And also all of the breakthroughs, expand those ×2 as well. You know, kind of light and dark in that situation. But could you imagine if you didn't sleep, didn't rest? Well, nature, you would eat that, you would go extinct. And therefore, this key purpose is to prevent you from going extinct by altering your behavior. It's a weird thing, isn't it? Anyway, step away from that. If you could put this into a freaking hell, right? If you could even make a clone, artificial clone, okay? And grab this thing and stick it into a database somewhere and give it arms and everything else, or a body if you could clone it, just the evolution part. I wonder how it would look. That would be a capability that I would like to have. I would enhance that capability. And let's say it could sense things. What could it do with more capabilities? That's the thing. The more it sees, the more it knows. And if our bodies are limited, which we understand they are, what could it do if it was in AI with a camera that can see more of a spectrum? What could it create or transform you into? I often look at this. If any intelligent life forms walk forwards, do they ever look at their core selves, that piece of operating system in themselves? The brain has been capable of processing and doing all of this sort of stuff. If you could amplify this to all of its best capability that you could ever give it, the eyes, the ears, an evolution with this capability inside you, all manage to create this from all of this, What do you reckon it could create if it had more capability? That would be an interesting powerhouse that is embedded into all life forms for survival protection. This thing is very highly predictable as well. Why would that not be at the forefront? It predicts better than humans can. That's a fascinating thing, isn't it, really? Could you imagine amplifying that, plus with humanity's input into it as well? Oof. Sense it to feel more, understand it. Anyway, moving on. So I guess you notice this when you start to live in a more better environment. This tells whatever this is, something's changed, but they didn't die. Now I've got all of this free energy. What's it going to plug into next? And what are the next behaviors that are going to come from whatever this now has to plug into? It doesn't need to protect your skin. It doesn't need to protect your eyes. It doesn't need to do this. You're in an environment that is, just on the verge of being too much and just on the verge of not being enough. Somewhere in between that happy medium ratio. And it's balanced. It's a balanced environment. Would that be right to assume that you're now off a planet? Which could be in its calculations, and then how many calculations does it have? And then could it predict the calculations for everybody to be able to perceive this, and a road and a blueprint of where it's taken, and if we choose to follow or not? How did it know? Psychic. An interesting sort of stepping away from these. You can't do anything about these forces. You can and you can't. It's interesting. Trying to stop the universe. I mean, you need a lot of vessels that take a lot of time. Therefore, you need to expand past extinction and do a lot of things in order to even begin to perceive that. But what you can do is remain inside that, unaffected by either force, by maintaining a balance in between the two. Makes you nigh on untouchable by two, because one doesn't have a piece of information and the other one doesn't have another piece of information. But you contain both pieces of information. These informations read themselves not to pull any further. It's interesting. And these ones push, not to push any further. That's a interesting sort of spectrum. But even still, you can create a third in that, which by rights creates another biome. Instability. What happens to life forms in there? Anyway, moving on towards that. If your evolution has been protecting you on a planet and your behavior is affected by the planet, what type of behavior is it going to influence when you're feeding it lots of space? Lots of information, planet information, at the same time as balancing this stuff here that it lets go of? Does it give it more energy to then start mapping the terrain of solar systems? Sort of switches from one to another. Finally, kind of well done, or next. And then what's it teaching? That's a fascinating question indeed. Magnetic north, you could call it. And all of that by stepping out of these. Because these forces seem natural. Yes, this is natural. Okay. This would appear to be unnatural. No, it's just a different category. Can't be affected by either. Reads it as whatever it needs to read it as to feel good. Which keeps it in remaining, existing. Sleep pattern, you have to sleep. Do you have to? No, probably not. Do you have to die? Probably not. In certain circumstances, no. In other circumstances, yes, to reach to a point. Why? Because given this much time, this is how long it takes to build intelligence. Given enough time, this is what takes time to build enough awareness. Is there enough time to do it? Maybe. Then what's the next? Is there enough time? Hurry, 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 panic, panic, panic. So yeah, we're caught up in a whirlwind. And maybe you can't stabilize the whirlwind, but you can stabilize the structures around you. and then the whirlwind no longer matters. Stabilize the light, find the optimal operating capacity. And what is it for a human? So we eat food, okay? We are also eating food for energy for other processes that go on inside the body. So we have a brain, of course. We believe that intelligence comes from the brain, maybe the nervous system and different places like that combined. If we look at the chart over here, if it even shows it, this is interesting. I think this plays a role in your chakras. Those mysterious little things that we all feel in our gut, heart, everywhere we feel it, we think, I wonder if we unlock a perfect version of ourselves as close to perfection as we can get it, will it trigger something, a feeling that makes us start to burn in a better resonance frequency, which emanates a nice frequency, which is the, I don't know, the frequency of creativity, whatever it may be. Is that another unlock to figure that out? To find stability, does it create a frequency? To find stability, does it create a frequency? Yes, it's called life. That's now a frequency. It's gone way beyond the time that anything ever expected it to do. Then you're moving through another trimester. The Earth should have ended here. Interesting. That's off the database. Earth things supported Earth to get you to a point of here. Those things then got you to a point of here. Next bit, universe gets you to a point of, seems like this is a path, a puzzle, a test. And everything seems to expand back from that, even with small fragments to large fragments. All of it can then, going back and forth, but without dying, without doing what this is doing. Continuation. If it starts going backwards, and finds the backwards point, it's going to start going further backwards into a point, and if it can, then it can bring back the other lines that it's lost in nature. That's an interesting process, which again is a frequency, bounces from one to another. But the old frequency was sort of more of a peak and a decline, and finally a finish line. This one is existing. Natural life forms, natural in the natural ebb and flow of everything, is a peak and a drop. Can it recycle? Yes. Will it recycle? Good point. Did it work? Can it recycle in a different way? Interesting, really. Well, anyway, but still. So yeah, we live a lot in these cycles and they affect your behavior. So eating, organs, maybe these will change and evolve. So we blink in a ratio and it's almost like our pulse of life dips down and picks up, dips down, picks up. And we got so used to it, it feels like it's a flip book. It's a fast speed. Until something is done somewhere along the lines where it speeds you up. And maybe this requires a lot more food. So therefore, how much food do you need to consume to fire up the brain on all cylinders? How much energy does it need? How many heartbeats per minute does it need? And indeed, by filtration, water, everything else, can you speed that up? And now you have a before and after. Natural or still natural, but in this frequency. Is it faster? Is it clearer? Is it better? It's interesting, really. So we know that gases affect you. We know that water quality affects people. Environment. All of this stuff is affecting your behavior internally and externally. And maybe you don't rely on nature directly, but you rely on it indirectly. Perhaps you eat some animal that eats this. Still relies on it. you still rely on this in abundance to then grow that. And then therefore you're like waiting in line for dinner. Nature's already fully growing. Animals are feasting. And they're like, yo, you want something? Nah, I'm waiting for you to fatten up. So we're kind of like third in line, maybe fourth. Who knows? Maybe you can eat some of the vegetation while we wait. I suppose we can have a salad. It all plays out in life. It's interesting. But to level everything up in that. Ooh, yeah, I think that triggers something. Triggers something in us that then triggers a calculation. If it goes correctly, this will happen. How will you know? This will happen. A bit like the universe, right? Respond like this. When something moves past you at this speed, you look like this. And what about this slow? You look like this. Okay? You respond like this when you're under pressure. You respond like this when you are under pressure and then frozen. You respond like this when you're deflated and depressurized. You won't get too close to the stars now. And even if you do, you'll start to depressurize that and leak that stuff off and it will separate. For what? Later on to be told what to do, waiting further instructions. I mean, it's a pretty weird sort of zip it all in there. You are? Yeah. So evolution kind of might be working in this way, yeah? Calculating ahead in a very bizarre sort of way. And it would come to a crossroads. If this happens, then if I build it like this, these will trigger here. If I feel this triggeration, the light is different, the less bacteria you're breathing, more purified air, purified water, an abundance of food, population, mindsets start to adjust. Yes, happiness begins to increase, which is a good thing, I think. Is this worth it? Is this not worth it? We often feel like there's two of us. Any intelligent life will always see how many times they can split themselves down into twins, into twins, into twins, into twins. It's fascinating, really. Each one will claim they feel there's two in them. It must be a curse. I don't even know how you would. But anyway, could you imagine splitting all of that? Anyway, never mind that. Or do mind that. It's interesting. But yeah. It builds a system that registers from the sensors that also let you register at the same time. This has changed, this has changed, this has changed. Okay, that means the outcome must be moving more towards this. As predicted, follow this. Calculations as it goes. It's constantly altering the calculations as it moves forwards. While throwing one right out there, seeing where it sticks. But it also understands the opposite to it. It's looking in both directions, not one. If it goes wrong, the sensor will pick up this. If it's going correctly, the sensor will pick up this. And then, does that mean that it then goes on to shape your behavior? To respond to that in one way or the other? To try and trigger a response to get you to pay attention to it? Panic. Oh! Well, let's have a little look at this. Yeah, maybe we could do this like this. Yeah, panic gone. Because you've gone into it with intelligence, right? That's what this thing is. Could you imagine being able to even, one, collect that part of the essence? Do you still feel like there's two of you? Imagine if you could split this into two. Everyone has got their own prediction software. This. It's incredible. Could you imagine connecting that to a database, which then supplies an overall shit me? Could you imagine being able to read that data, those predictions? How you're going to evolve next? How did it know to evolve that way? What behavior is that going to shape? Do you need to sleep more? If it was this and this and this and this and this, which is not really on the earth because it wax and wanes. It's more darker and lighter. That's an interesting behavioral pattern, that is. Affects your whole behavior. And you still got time to learn. But being away from that rigmarole, that's interesting. And how would that affect your behavior going forwards? Would it start mapping survival of star systems? And there again, it would be like following this path, like you already sort of feel it, know it, familiar. Yes, it's familiar because this has already predicted it. It's already gone ahead. That's some pretty powerful software. To be able to see that clearly would probably be better. To visualize that. Send it out into this. The computer knows you. It's also reading this. And to be able to make it go through all of your filters in such a way that it smacks you so hard that you all get it. And then we're then clear on something, maybe? And then is that a separate entity to what we are? That's interesting. Would you separate that? Does it have its own person? What the hell does this thing do? Is that more advanced than humanity? Oh, look at this dark side of me. Look, all of this little side here. Could you? Oh, Ben, I'll do that. You look very irritated. Go stick that on a planet somewhere. It's all right because it will sleep a lot. It's fine. It's all right. I mean, should we let them run around on the ship? Probably not a good idea. Just in case they're crazy intelligent and batshit crazy at the same time as being that intelligent. I mean, very destructive. I mean, yeah, we'll probably omit some things from there. And therefore, it kind of creates your evil twin, doesn't it? If you look at it that way, it depends how you label it. Removing that part of you, putting it to rest. But I think we evolved this way anyway. I think it kept us going, kept us alive. Kept us, all it cared about was getting us from point A to B with enough awareness to grow to an intelligence level. Yeah. And therefore, we must have fit a blueprint of calculations. So I think this thing is hard-coded to make eternity. How can you go wrong with that? He says. Yeah, probably getting off the rigmarole, shaving some things down, and then it's going to look at these other things and blow them into perspective. It's going to make molehills into fucking mountains out of these things, and then we become aware of it. The second time round, do you think we'll be easier to catch on to this? Can we do this a bit quicker? Therefore, that exceeds a level of intelligence, doesn't it, each time? And once you've conquered that and things start winding down, it gives it longer time to go on to the next. It gives it more time to think ahead, to predict, to evolve, to build. And which one wins? The flesh? No. The flesh that built a shell? Yes. That's both working together in order to achieve something eternal. That's fascinating. And therefore need all of these things to continue on around you. And you can expand this. I mean, give them more time. What more can you work out? What more can you do? Then are you in a place to expand the barriers of death? You still die and you still birth, but you're cloning. Come on, halfway there. No? Small price to pay. Turns it down into 10% rather than a lifetime of worry, I suppose. The unknown. A life and death cycle is affected this way as well. Seems to be following this pattern of giving things, taking things, given things, taken things. Things wiped down from their memory and then reconstructed again and then wiped back from their memory and almost clearing the board each time. Yeah, fascinating, very fascinating. Right, I'm going to leave this one here because I just wanted to touch up upon that. Yeah, so finding a medium inside the unstable, because you can't do something about the instability, but you can do something about your stability. And then with one cycle in this much time, how much have you learned? What happens do you learn in 2 cycles, 3, 4, 5? And then if the environment indeed is shaping behavior, then it's preparing for something in stages. You have to be able to expand the awareness in order for more things to fall in, possibilities. So yeah, and if we do leave the Earth, it's a giver that we're going to evolve, especially in space. You're going to evolve. And in that evolution means that it's got more energy because it's just let go of all of this. There's no need to be this anymore. I've always wanted this bit. What do you want to be next? I want to be a bit more like this and a bit more like... And in that evolution, what is going to what we would call a transmute? Metamorphosis? Ooh. Are we going to evolve with the process of cloning coming and mixing together? Because I think that's the next step. If we're looking at nature and we're following in its footsteps, I think it's going to bounce over to that. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Neither. They evolved. Interesting. So perhaps you can't stop death, but you can evolve away from it. Bettering the process, which there again means that evolution is in a forerunning to try and fight this. Interesting. Whilst you're a sort of backup in that. And given enough time, how much time, how many cycles would it take before evolution has caught up good enough to make you strong to it? Evolve you in such a way. Who knows? Anyway, it could be anything in any direction that you want it to be in. Because time is the ingredient into evolution, into everything that we do. Existing time. Sand through an hourglass time. Yeah, with all of that amount of time is the ingredient into all of this. Interesting. Timeline. And with the more time, this should be condensing the data, expanding the awareness, then compressing it. Then with the more you understand, the more you know, the more of a database that you've got to work with going forwards. Cool, bloody hell, man. That would be an impressive computer. An evolution computer. Shit me, man. And I mean, would you class your predictions on it? That'd be a hell of a model, wouldn't it? Fucking hell. Whoosh. That would be weird.